All right, second game of the Saturday doubleheader, Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 8-8 Bengals at the 10-6 Steelers. Bengals favored by 1.5. So Pittsburgh has multiple things to potentially play. Obviously, Cincinnati needs to win just to have a chance, and then they're begging for Miami to lose and the Broncos to lose. Based off what happens in the first game here, Pittsburgh could be playing for the North if the Browns somehow pulled the upset against the Ravens. Let's say that's unlikely, but they still have seeding available, right? They could be the 5 or the 6 based off what happens with the Chargers. So Pittsburgh's still playing for something here, plus a division game in Pittsburgh. Bengals favored by 1.5 here on the road against the Steelers. Steelers won in a shootout in the first matchup.
Yeah, and we said, like, the most powerful thing the Steelers have on the line is this idea of Houston is stumbling, listlessly into the playoffs versus the other teams who you might have to travel to who look very good. You want to have the 5 seed in the AFC because the alternatives are significantly less attractive, I think. I think the Steelers are absolutely motivated to win this. Cincinnati, they're not going to know until the following day whether it matters or not, but part of them having any shot of making the playoffs is contingent on winning this game. So I think you do, even independent of the fact these teams hate each other generally, I think you have two teams that are absolutely motivated to play and win this game if they can.
As I mentioned, first game was a shootout. Pittsburgh got the win. Joe Burrow goes 28 of 38, 3 touchdowns, 5 big-time throws. He's been, we've talked a lot about Burrow. At least 3 big-time throws per PFF in, 6 out of his last 7 games. I mean, it's been wild, man. The guy's played extremely well. He's got Higgins, who's been hot as he heads into free agency. He's trying to keep Higgins around. Jamar Chase has been great. So I think it's, that show, again, that trio, what can they do? Mike Gesicki's been a nice complementary piece over the last few weeks with those guys. I think it's going to be another potential shootout here.
Yeah, it should be. I wonder what damage the Steelers' defensive line can do to Cincinnati's offensive line, which is a little banged up and not great to begin with. TJ Watt has not been, I think, the same force since he hurt his ankle. Like, it's definitely diminished the impact that he can have. He's still dangerous. He's still effective, but he's not, where he was earlier in the season, where he was a massive problem for anybody in any given week. I think now they are relying a little bit more on the other players on that defensive front, but they still have more than enough of them to cause damage.
What do you make of the Steelers? I mean, they were a 3-loss team heading into the Week 15 stretch that culminated. That has now been, you lose at Philadelphia, lose at Baltimore, lose against Kansas City at home, all pretty handily, right? I mean,
right.
Didn't really have much of a chance in any of those games. Baltimore was a 1-score game into the fourth quarter. But you lost against 3 of the best teams in the NFL. It felt like a different Steelers team earlier in the year, didn't it?
They also haven't had George Pickens out there for those games.
No, I know.
And Pickens, theoretically, I think, is back this week.
He was there against Kansas City, though.
Yeah, but he is their most important player in terms of, weaponry, and they haven't really had him. Like, part of the dynamic of Russell Wilson coming into the lineup, a quarterback, and replacing Justin Fields is Wilson is able to theoretically unlock George Pickens with those, the rainbow deep shots, the just give him a chance plays that Justin Fields wasn't even putting in the air. Absent Pickens, obviously that disappears. Like, it doesn't have the same effect when you're throwing it to Van Jefferson or whatever.
One thing I forgot to mention at the top was about our subscribers.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And encouraging people to subscribe here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's bad timing to do it, but let's do it.
It's probably not good timing.
It's not great, right in the middle of things. Let's encourage people to subscribe here on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Look at that.
And an audio.
We've highlighted the last few weeks, only 1/3 of our viewers are subscribed, which means 2/3 of you could just click that button, subscribe, click the bell, too, for the notification on the YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody. And appreciate Amon St. Brown, too, for also encouraging or demanding that Lions fans pay the bills and subscribe. Appreciate everybody that's already subscribed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so look, I think Pittsburgh, it's big just because there's stuff on the line, but they've also lost 4 out of their last 6 with or without Pickens. I mean, you can't be that dependent on him. Defense has regressed just a little bit, and what felt like a different Steelers team, right? Every other time they got into the playoffs over the last 4 or 5 years, it's like, yeah, they're not going beyond round one. There was a point in the middle of the season where you said, hey, I could see them upsetting Kansas City. And they always play Baltimore tough. And you could see them upsetting Baltimore. And I don't see that as much. And if they lose this one and really stumble into the playoffs, I'm not saying it's full last year's Eagles, but it's, similar as the stumble into the playoff team that doesn't look like they're going beyond one game. In the playoffs.
This one in particular would be damaging, I think. I mean, you can make the case that, look, Philadelphia on the road against Baltimore, and then against Kansas City. Those are three teams that right now look like they're in the elite category, right? Two teams that are a number one seed, a team that was vying for the number one seed until like last week, and the Baltimore Ravens, who look like they're as hot as anybody at the moment. Like, you can make the case that that's just the difference between true elite contender and not, right? And that was the case, or during those Christmas games, it felt like contender versus pretender across the board. There are levels to this game, right? Cincinnati, though, is just trying to get themselves back into the playoffs. If you can't beat that team, that's a much worse indictment of your potential to progress in the postseason than losing to a team that you expect to be in the Super Bowl,
The other storyline stuff that I think is interesting in Week 18, is this the last game for player X? Together, T. Higgins being a free agent here with that whole saga, and Cincinnati holding on to him the last couple of years, but now is this it? Burrow's rallying to keep him around. So
everybody is. I mean, Burrow is rallying. Burrow is putting pressure on the organization to keep him around. Jamar Chase is advocating for it and saying, we could all coexist. T. Higgins is saying he doesn't necessarily need to be paid wide receiver one money. He would take potentially less to stay around with Jamar Chase and Joe. Everyone is saying this could work, and yet the Bengals don't appear to have any real interest in making it happen. I wonder at what point, even if the plan was to franchise tag him, let him walk. At what point are they all making enough noises that you go, we should probably at least explore this? Let's see what the bargain is. Because they've been opportunistic in the past. They weren't planning on signing Orlando Brown when he was a free agent. And all of a sudden, his price tag dropped to the point where they're like, we should probably do this.
Yeah.
This would be silly not to make this deal. So I do wonder, at what point does somebody reach out and say, hey, you thought you couldn't make this happen. Actually, it's not a bad deal. You should probably,
I have a feeling they might lock up Chase and Higgins this offseason, make it all work, and go from there. We'll talk plenty this offseason, but just in case it's the end, it's been a good run. Burrow and Higgins. All right, Bengals by 1.5. Where are you going with this one?
I'm going with the Bengals. I feel like I do the storyline as much as anything else. I kind of want them to win this game just to see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah. And then see what happens with Miami, see what happens with Denver. I'll take the Bengals as well. Harry's going to take Cincinnati. By the way, Harry's going to take Baltimore. I gave my pick, but not the 9-year-old who's got better picks than me.
Right. I mean, his is.
So Harry, just for those keeping track at home, somebody is definitely doing that. Harry's got Baltimore.
It's also in the sleeper app.
And Cincinnati. You can see it in the sleeper app, of course, yes.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.